The interesting thing about tracking your stats is I have always felt like if I were better off the tee, I would be scoring better. Well, false. Guys, welcome back to the channel. Off-season work, and today we're talking about stats and tracking your stats. So I cannot emphasize this enough that if you want to get better, you guys need to track your stats. Even if it's something as simple as on your scorecard, you track fairway hit, greens in regulation, how many putts, what was your first putt distance-wise, and then your second putt. So, I mean, you can take it and make it bigger. At least track some stats, because that'll give you the indication of where you need to work. And that, my friends, that is what we're going to look at today. So, I have reviewed originally V1 Game, which then changed to Roundabout, and that's the application I use. So, I would say that if you're going to use an app, there's so many out there. Is there one that does everything? No. There's not like a golden goose or whatever. It's based on what you want to do, and what my preference is. I wear my iWatch, so it will detect when I swing. With this software, I can start it, and then at the end of a hole, I track what my score was, how long my first putt was. And what it does is it automatically tracks where did I hit the shot from, and then I'll go back after the round and I'll put in the club. You can do all that with the watch, but I want to do as least back and forth with my watch or my phone as possible. What I really start from is I look at my strokes gained, and this app actually tracks strokes gained for me. So this allows me, this little funnel here allows me to say what's the time frame. I'm looking at when I started this season to right now. The interesting thing about tracking your stats is I have always felt like if I were better off the tee, I would be scoring better. Well, false. When you look at my strokes gained compared to a scratch, I am only losing 1.2 strokes to that person that's a scratch player. So what I thought about my weakness is wrong. Looking at the approach, the negative 6.2, that is where I need to really work, and we're going to dig into that here in a second. My short game and putting has gone back up. Since I stopped using well putt and working on my short game on a weekly basis, I've lost ground. So I need to get better about that. Let's dive right into driving. So driving accuracy, that can be a misleading stat, because what it's actually doing is you could be in that first cut of rough and it will say, you missed fairway, sorry. And you actually have a good lie. So I don't put a lot of weight into it, but I put some. Do I want to have better than I have now? Yes, absolutely I do. Another stat that I will look at is, and it's more like fun to look at than it is important, when the dark blue line here represents what my long drive of that each round was. And yeah, I mean, the misleading thing about this is you see when I played the UT Golf Club, I hit one 343 yards. I don't remember if I said this in the video itself, but it was on the 18th hole. I hit the cart path twice, and I mean like rocket, shooting probably a good 50 feet high every bounce. So yes, I hit it 343 yards, but did I? No, I probably hit it maybe 290, 300, something like that. But still, what I want to see is that overall average. This is the other thing you got to consider with driving distance is it doesn't matter if you're hitting a 4-iron, a 3 hybrid, whatever club you're hitting, it is your driving club. It's not your driver. That's completely different. You can export that data and look at it. But regardless, I like to see that overall I'm hovering around that 300 range. That makes me feel good. That's why I use StackSystem. You'll see the actual averaging. It's kind of bounced around 250. again, I'm fine with that because that includes my 3 hybrid, my 4 iron when I take it. So overall, I'm satisfied with that. So let's talk next about something very important, greens per round. 6.6 is horrible. And this is, there is no way around this. I mean, you can miss the green just by rolling onto that fringe, and that's considered missing the green. You can still putt it from there, but again, that needs to be so much higher. That needs to be 14. So, when we're talking about greens and reg, I like to look at the strokes gains by distance. So, what it's telling me is from under 75 feet, I am at a negative 0.74 shots for that distance. So I'm losing less than a stroke in that range. Now what I can do is show proximity. This is really where it gets gritty, right? So from a proximity perspective of less than 75 yards, you can see the plot graph. Love this because it's telling me my short 16.2%, my long 10.8%. That means my clubs are dialed in. I have the distance. It's going to be like a 3/4 swing or a half swing. I just need to get a little more accurate, but overall, I'm satisfied with that. So let's look at what I usually do from 75 to 100 yards. Again, my long, when I have that much long, I'm fine with that. Short means I just mishit it, and usually long it means I flushed it or I hit a flyer. So right left is equal. I'm fine with that. For 75 to 100 yards, to have less than a pitching wedge in your hand, 45 is pretty bad. This is where it starts getting more interesting. So from 100 to 125, I'm hitting 51.4% of my greens. So that means this is more of a full shot. It's kind of on the border. I'm going to switch how I'm hitting my wedges this year, and I'm going to go with more 3/4 shots on anything that's a wedge. So I'm hoping that will bring this into consideration. My long and short looks good from this distance. My proximity, 125 to 150 yards. It's bad. It's bad because that is pitching wedge 9 iron, and I'm only hitting the green 39.1%. My 9 iron has been a bit of a struggle for me, and I don't know why 9 iron. I mean, a lot of times when I'm hitting my pitching wedge, sometimes I'll go after it, and that'll cause me to pull it a little bit. But overall, this is not good. And when I get to that 150, 175 yards, this is where I have to make a big difference this year. 28.8%. That is anywhere from a 9 iron to a 7 iron. I need to be hitting way more greens from this distance. It's ridiculous. Completely ridiculous. 175 to 200. I mean, that's getting into that 6 iron through 4 iron, depending on the wind. 5 iron, my 6 and 5 iron. That's horrible. Shorts 42.4% because when I get a longer iron in my hands, I tend to hit it either thick or thin. Right and left looks good. I wish it was smaller, but again, this needs to change. I don't even really look at this. I'm hitting the green from 200 yards. Can't really tell. I think that's 4.2%. Again, if I'm chipping, and you can see from the plots that I am, looks like just outside of 30 feet when I'm missing, and this is compared to the flag. So again, it needs to be fixed, but I'm not really too worried about that kind of a distance. Okay, let's talk putting. I've documented well putt and how much I use it and how much I love it, and I'm back to using it on a daily basis. But what this is telling me is, let's look at this first one. So less than 3 feet, my strokes gain is I'm losing 0.61 to a scratch, and that's absolutely unacceptable. So that means I'm not, you can see the one putts that I have. I actually have, looks like 3 putted. It's kind of hard to get that one in. But this is telling me 95% of the time I do a 1 putt. So that's not, let's do the math. 95% from a 1 putt, 4%, so that means 1% of the time I have 3 putted from less than 3 feet. Wow, that's scary. Let's jump over to 3 to 6 feet. I am only getting it in 1 putt within 31%. What I say for, I think it's like 88% is what a pro hits that in. So definitely need to work on this. I'm only getting it in 1 putt 31% of the time. And it's interesting because 69%, so I didn't 3 putt from this distance. That's a good thing. Crazy. From 6 to 10 feet, strokes gain, I'm losing 0.71. I 1 putt 27% of the time. From 10 to 15 feet, that's where it starts getting dicey. So I'm only 1 putting 10 to 15 feet 11% of the time. 2 putts 83%. The rest is 3 putts. And let's see, if you really think about that, yeah, that needs work. So without getting into the details, because I know this can be monotonous and boring, you'll see 3 putting from 25 to 30 feet happens a lot, compared to 3 putting from 30 to 50 feet. It's actually better. So my lag putting from farther off distances is much better. And from 51 feet or more, my 2 putt make is 50%. I think that's pretty freaking awesome. Okay, another stat I like to look at from a putting perspective is putts for green and regulation. So you'll actually see, and this is by round of golf. I had a really bad round at Terra Vista. No, wait a minute, I'm looking backwards. Holy smokes. This is telling me when I played Terra Vista, I had averaged 1.3 putts for greens in regulation. I don't know what my greens in regulation was, but you'll actually see the graph. I want to be at 2 or better for greens in regulation. I mean, the tricky thing is, with greens in regulation, you still could be 60 yards off, and with only with 3 putts, it's got to be counterbalanced by 1 putt, which, regardless, I think putts on greens in regulation needs to be around 2 for me. Putts per hole, looks like I'm hanging out kind of around that 1.8 range. It went up much higher when I played the other day, but it's averaging out, and I want to see the putts per hole when I'm not hitting the green. I want to see that be more around 1.5 average. This is where you want to use Arcos or some form that will track distances for you. That way you can't cheat it, right? So if this tracks every time I record what iron I used or what club I used, it actually keeps track of what was the worst drive, 54. Wow. And the best drive, 343. We talked about that one. And this also tells me what my median is, 262. So you can kind of follow down my 3-wood, median's 253. That's great. I'm very happy with that. 3 hybrid 211, that it's my 225 club. So this is the median. This is like when you hit a shot, whatever. Everything's included in this. So the reason this is so important is you want to take this on this side and compare it to what I do is I use an Excel spreadsheet based on how I'm hitting, and I'm going to put that up over here. You can actually see what I see my distances as, and it's very, they're both kept in sync by me based on how I'm playing. Okay, so another cool thing about the roundabout is that it actually tells me what is my potential that I should be averaging right now, and it's saying that I should be shooting around 78.1. That is considering I'm not making mistakes. Right now, horribly, my mistakes are 9.3 per round. Now, what is that? 3 putts is a mistake. Penalties per round. So if I hit it in the hazard, if I hit it out of bounds, that's considered a penalty. 2 chips. So a chip is anything for less than 75 yards. And what this is doing for me is it's telling me I can look at, you make 3 putts per round for the current filters. Your worst strokes gained putting distance are negative 1.42 from 3 to 6. So it actually gives you a little more data. This is an interesting stat. So you can click on the 2 chips, and it's saying less than 30 yards. My average proximity after I chip that first one is 23 feet. When you look at 50 yards and less, it's 27 feet. And 75 yards and less is 39 feet. So really, my 30 and less is almost the same as my 50 and less. And I think that's from my mental side, right? So I'm next to the green, and I flub a chip. Gosh, oh my goodness, how many times did I do that this year? It's crazy. And why don't I just take a hybrid, right? Oh, there's so much room for improvement. This is what's exciting. So to wrap it up, it is my strong opinion that you need to be tracking your statistics. And this is why. So when I'm looking at next year, next season, or right now, what I'm looking at, I'm just merely looking at strokes gained. My goals for this year, I think, was to get down to a 4. Well, I didn't even sniff that, but you know, there are circumstances. But again, I didn't work as hard as I could have, and that's why another reason I'm doing the whole workout piece before I get to come out the simulator, because to me the simulator is fun, right? That's where I'm working on all of this stuff. I have to work out first. I have to do one set, and you can see those videos that talk about my strategy, as well as the next one coming out is going to be the actual exercises that go along with that. You got to figure out what's going to get you to get better, to carve out time. And right now the easy way to carve out time is to be in my simulator. Now granted, the golf course is only a 10-minute drive from my house, and I need to be there more, but then you start thinking, well, I would only get 15 minutes of practice in. Well, okay, 15 minutes of practice on the short game where you're on grass chipping to a hole is different than chipping in a simulator. It's different than hitting on a perfect putting mat. It's different. It's reality. I mean, what's funny is I can sit on my well putt and do as good as I do, and then go out to the course and my putting results are different because it's not perfect. You got to read it. You got to look at the spike marks. You got to look at everything. Take all that in consideration. So, point is, you need to be tracking your stats so you can review what you need to work on. And the off season is the perfect time to do it. You don't have to have this fancy simulator, right? You can just have a net that you throw up in the garage, pull your car out, throw a net up, chip into the net. You could chip off, you can get cheap hitting mats. Now if you're going to practice a lot, I would highly suggest against cheap ones. But for $100 you can get a decent hitting mat, and for $60 you can get a net to hit into. That, just working on your swing and getting to where it's just automatic, it makes a difference. It makes a difference. I'm getting way off track. I'm sorry. My point of this video is track your stats, guys. We've reviewed mine. You see my weakness. I'm not hiding anything. I'm not just saying, well, today I shot an 89, and, you know, I am letting you see behind the scenes what's going on with my game. It's going to hold me accountable. It gets you some insight. It lets you see where I'm at, and you may be in a better position than I am. But let's see who can get better faster. Guys, thanks for following, and enjoy and take advantage of the off season to get your game better. Small goals. Get 1% better a day. Guys, thanks for following. Work to keep it findable, because that will help you enjoy the game more. We'll see you.